It could use some work, but we'll let it slide for now.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to Upstream TV, Channel 18, Upstream TV. My name is Mike Breeden. Seated next to who?
Daniel J. Rice.
Daniel J. Rice. This is a show that we do on Channel 18 called What's Your Story? And it's a show where we ask a very important and pertinent question. Can I ask you a question?
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Shoot.
What's your story?
My story? That's pertinent to this episode?
Yeah.
All right.
What's your story?
I've just published a novel titled This Side of a Wilderness.
Really?
Yes, sir.
This is a book that's just been completed.
Well, yes, it's just been completed. It's due for release December 6th.
Excellent, excellent. Will you allow me to dig a little deeper in here? You said it's called This Side of Wilderness.
Of a Wilderness, correct.
Of a Wilderness.
Yes.
What's it about?
Well, it's about a young man from Wyoming. His name is Eli Sylvan. He's begun to feel alienated from his friends and coworkers. He lives the sort of typical semi-professional life of a late 20s adult, goes to work, lives the daily grind, but then on the weekends, he spends as much of his free time as he can in the mountains, fishing, solitary camping, searching for wildlife. But these brief interludes with nature never really fully satisfy this longing that he has to be completely immersed in it. So he returns to Mondays, and he's just not quite satisfied. So he develops a plan that he's going to begin to paint scenic landscapes, hoping that this will cure his longing. But as he begins, he realizes he doesn't know how to paint. He's never been an artist, never even been in a gallery. So, sort of at a loss for ideas, he decides that he's going to develop a plan to where he can move into the wilderness full-time, become a recluse, and just focus on creating his masterpiece. And so that's what he does. He tries to separate himself from society.
Whoa.
And just paint his masterpiece.
Why write this novel?
Why write this novel? Well, as a reader, I've always been interested in two kinds of books. I've been interested in nonfiction, nature-based books, such as Minnesota author Sigurd F. Olson would write, or another Minnesota author, Gary Paulson, Montana author Rick Bass, or Thoreau, you know, just the type of nonfiction books that just take you to that place, that descriptive place in nature. And I've also been very interested in literary fiction novels, the type of introspective quests that authors like Thomas Wolfe and Herman Hesse try to allude to. And so I attempted, at least, to write a book that combined these two ideas. Basically, I wanted to write a book that I would enjoy reading, which...
And you said it takes place where?
The first half of the novel begins in the state of Wyoming, and it follows Eli Sylvan with his soon-to-be lady friend, Lamara, into a wilderness of northern Minnesota.
And you've been to Wyoming?
I lived in Wyoming for about 6 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Can I ask you, where were you born?
I was born in Wiesbaden, Germany.
That? But just people were on a trip or something?
It was sort of by mistake. My dad was stationed in Turkey for the Air Force, and my mom was living there at the time, but then there was some terrorist activity that was going on, some hostage situations. I think there was a film with Ben Affleck about that, where they pretended to be movie stars.
Yeah, Argo, is that?
Argo, yep. So that was going on. So they sent all non-military personnel out of Turkey. And so the closest maternity ward on a military base for my mother to go to was Germany. So that's where she lived for about the 2 months prior to my birth, and then about the 4 to 6 months after. And then I lived in Turkey until I was about 3, and then moved to the States. Lived in Florida after that for a while. So.
Don't we all? I mean, so what? Now, so, okay, you left Germany at the age of 3?
No, left Turkey at about the age of 3.
Okay, Turkey,
so
then
a lot of
straight
fond
to
memories.
Well, then Florida, you said?
Then Florida, yeah.
Turkey to Florida.
Correct.
You know, I suppose you didn't know much of the difference at the time. But what was it like? I mean, how long were you in Florida?
Stayed in Florida until I was probably about 7, and then moved to the great state here in Minnesota. Spent most of my growing up years in Minnesota. And then, yeah.
Do you think, was it Minnesota that gave you the appreciation for wilderness? I mean, beyond the authors that do venture into that landscape, is that where you got your interest?
I think it was, because my first experience with it was we lived in I mean, it's central Minnesota, what is now a lake surrounded by mansions and infiltrated with jet skis and Eurasian milfoil and Asian carp. But at the time, when I was young, this was like a completely isolated landscape. And we moved into the place just outside, sort of in between Shakopee, Minnesota and Prior Lake, on a little lake. And we lived there for about 6 years, and that's where I first learned to just enjoy the silence that can only come from being alone in the woods.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then, so is this book semi-autobiographical?
Yes, it is. And I guess what I mean by that is there's no events that take place in here that are written as truth, that are attempted to be exact reproductions of something that I've experienced, but they're all close to places and experiences that I'm familiar with. And so I use the old adage, write what you know, and I tried to incorporate that into the story so that it would seem more alive, more true, even though it's fiction.
Excellent. So the first part takes place in Wyoming?
Correct, for the most part.
And then,
most of part one takes place in Wyoming, and then...
Where's a person to go when they want to go recluse? I mean, is it Wyoming? Is it Minnesota? Or is it...
Well, you can consult this here novel if you want some further advice, but yeah, there are, as far as just getting away as a vacation, Wyoming, I would say, is a great place to do that. I mean, it's something like 55% of the state is public lands, whether it be Forest Service lands or whatever. There's wilderness properties. There's just a lot of places for a guy like you or I to just go and not have to tell anybody we're going. We can just go and we can just be there, be alone. Yeah. But if you want to own remote property, Wyoming's way, I mean, unless you're a millionaire, then it's a pretty expensive place. So that's why the characters in this book chose Minnesota, is because they could afford riverfront property of significant acreage in a remote, reclusive location in northern Minnesota.
Now, the man himself in the story, he's not going to go and become a recluse by himself. Is he going to bring this woman?
That is the plan. I'm not going to give away too much of that, but that is their plan.
Sparking my curiosity here. Now, this novel, this side of a wilderness,
Correct.
which is, by the way, I love the way this looks. Who does this? How'd you get this done to look so beautiful like this, to be so inviting like that?
Well, I spent a long time, went through probably about 20 different cover prints before I found one that, I mean, they were all had the same image, but just, I can show you another one here. This is the hardcover copy. So it's the same basic image, but just downsized and then font placed above and below.
And the image seems to be some fabric with a leaf and light pushing through it, right?
Correct.
Like some sort of canvas?
It was an image that was taken from my campsite. I spent 4 months living alone in a northern Minnesota isolated forest while writing this novel. And this image was taken on one of my last days, late autumn. The leaves had all started to fall, and it was just a clear autumn day. I was packing up camp, and there was sunlight just penetrating through this canvas awning with a single leaf just sitting there, and it just...
I love it.
It fit.
So the story takes place, you're writing this book. Have you done anything like this before? I mean,
yeah. Again, back to sort of the semi-autobiographical nature. I did live a similar life. I was working for the USGS out in Wyoming as a hydrographer, which was a great job for anybody that loves the outdoors.
The USGS is, of course,
the United States Geological Survey. And I made the decision to resign from my position after having saved up enough money and purchased a piece of property here in northern Minnesota, because I knew that I always wanted to write a novel. In fact, I had started half a dozen or more novels in the previous 5 years, and some of them I got 20 pages into, others I got 90 pages into, but I just always got distracted by the daily grind, the 9 to 5. You know, I could go in a long burst on the weekend and just get a bunch of creative thought put on paper, but then Monday would come and I'd have responsibility again. And so I knew that if I ever wanted to actually finish one, I had to separate myself from that. So I saved up a bunch of money, bought a piece of land here in northern Minnesota, and spent 4 months living out of a canvas tent completely alone. I had solar panels that I used to power my laptop, but otherwise no electricity, no running water. And
wild.
It was wild,
Truly
literally.
wild.
Yeah, literally.
And then there you would write pen to paper then?
No, I had the solar panels which were used to charge my cell phone so I could walk out to the county road about a mile away and call what was then my girlfriend, now my wife, a couple times a week, and B, to charge my laptop so that I could write. Well, I was writing my novel on my laptop during the daylight hours, and then sometime after dark I would keep a daily journal of my experiences.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And that daily journal was mainly for a personal?
That was my original intention. That is actually what is in this here little book called The Unpeopled Season. I'm going to publish this, probably be set for release in June of 2014. And my main reason for publishing this is because, due to the fact that this is of a semi-autobiographical nature, the roughly 20 people that have read this book so far relate to me being the main character. So I want to be able to show them that, no, this is a book of fiction. Here is my actual experiences. So this is the nonfiction version, and a comparative use.
I'm assuming the unpeopled season is referring to the fact that you weren't around anybody for
Correct.
A season.
Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend at the time was coming to visit every weekend, but other than that, I didn't see anybody.
What is that? What is that like? I think there's been a time where I went for like 3 weeks, maybe tops,
Yeah.
in Solitude, and that was.
Were you in prison, or?
Well, no.
Come on, Mike, tell us.
This is what's your story. No, but the mind goes from you, and I mean, I'm myself kind of afraid about where my mind can go when I.
That's actually, I'm really glad that you led up to that. Is it okay if I read an excerpt from the book that sort of touches on that
I was going
topic?
to ask you to do so. Yes, please, would you?
This is an excerpt from part 2. This book is written in 3 parts. Part 1 is written as a narrative from the third person, the omnipotent view, looking at the characters of Eli and Lamara. Part 2 begins Eli's time alone in the wild. So he's writing a journal, so we see him written as the first person. So this is an excerpt from, after he's been alone in the woods for about 2 months, and he's starting to really sort of feel it. He's still trying to create his painting, hasn't had much success there yet. He's starting to understand what the word loneliness means. So I'll just read a quick page here. I drowned my loneliness last night with a double-dazed dose of vodka. My head hurts today. I'm growing sick of this damn jungle. I can't even defecate in peace. Every trip to the latrine is a voyage to misery. The mosquitoes take advantage of me while I'm most vulnerable and defenseless. I stand up, slapping my own ass and pulling up my pants as quickly as I can, simultaneously making a running dive into the sanctuary. Perhaps I should quit this. I could go back to town and find a job. I could still come out and visit this property recreationally. I could be a tourist. What I wouldn't give for a fresh-baked pizza. What I wouldn't give to sit on a couch and watch a movie. I would trade this entire damn wilderness for one moment of civilization. It looks like it's going to rain tonight. Let it. I've got enough vodka to get me through. I don't need anyone or anything. I'm going to get drunk and yell at the moon. I'm going to pick up my machete and hunt a bear. I'm going to surrender myself to a pack of wolves. Take my flesh. Take my blood. I don't need any of it, you filthy beasts. I turn on my lantern to assess my vodka supply. Not much left. I stand up and stumble outside for a piss. Take me now, forest. Consume me in your wrath. I will not fight it. I am ready. I sit back inside and watch the lantern shadows. I see images in the light I know aren't really there, but they seem so real I can almost grasp them. Is this epiphany? Is this truth? What world am I in? How have I traveled so far? There is a power inside of me I don't understand. I thought I knew it all when I knew nothing but the certainties of ignorance. I thought I had it all figured out when this world was a small little simple place. I thought the few people I knew who were wild and desolate were the definition of life. I thought there was magnificence in their supreme individuality. I thought I belonged amongst a confused and broken-hearted majority. I now realize everything I thought I believed was only fleeting indolence. I now understand these familiar strangers in the world of my memory are just as confused by their loneliness as I. I now see their faces and wonder why I ever believed in them. Where have you gone, O strangers I used to love? What world do you now consume? What heart do you breathe with in that disaster of your living nightmare? Do you ever think of me when you are lost? Does your clarity supersede that of my own? Can we ever again know that innocence of knowing nothing but our own doubts? Can we ever again feel that power of youth? Where are you, faces I remember? Are you happy? Is this the way we thought it would be when we were supreme to the requirement of thought? I thought that I loved you. Why does love deceive us? Why are these hearts so frail? Why have you disappeared? Where are the lost and lonely people of my memory? I hope you still know how to smile. I hope the stochastic repetition of days hasn't forged a smile upon your face, and you still remember the freedom we felt, those days when we were on top of the world. I hope your smile is sincere. You deserve it if ever a day deserves sunlight. You are the gods of my memory. Is that enough?
I love it. I love it. So, and that's the middle part where it's written from his perspective. It's in 3 parts. Why in 3 parts? It's the first you said was...
Yeah, the first, I've always thought the best form for a story was 3 parts. So it's sort of a bell curve, a parabola. So you have the introduction where you're learning about the characters, exploring their challenge, and why we should be interested in them as people, why we should give a dang about their life. Mm-hmm. And then you have part 2 where you're reaching the peak, the climax. It's their experience. They're being thrown into an environment that challenges them. Perhaps they have achieved their dreams. Perhaps their dreams are being torn for them, whatever it is. They're at the apex of this event. And then there's part 3 where it's not necessarily a fall from grace or a decline, but it's examining what they've learned from their experience, how they're adapting to these changes that have occurred in their life.
Excellent. So I think that I would appreciate probably the middle part the most. I love that. And so that does happen with the ideology of the book. I mean, I've been thinking over the past, Lord knows how many years about, I want to do a book, call it the Neurosis and Cirrhosis, the classic tale of the septic way of the world. And it basically would deal with about how when I was youth and bound to things, that it was just all clear and peaceful as glory days, and I didn't care. There wasn't no care in the world, and it seemed like the adults didn't have a care in the world, but they did, And then now that I'm an adult with my own child, I want to provide that world where there is no care in the world, and bear the burden of my own, But I think that to me, in the scope of the wilderness, separating yourself from the world is also amazing place to look at that idea that everything is so clean, good, and comfortable when you're in that plastic bubble, but
it's sort of
away to the wilderness and you can see some of the dark tears in it all.
Yeah, it's half escapism, it's half confrontism, because you look at the beginning of it and you look at it as, this is a guy who just can't handle it, so he's capitulated to escape. He has gone and just separated himself from this environment because he can't handle it. But then there's the confrontism where now that he's left alone with his own thoughts, and you replay the past when you're alone. Mm-hmm. It's inevitable, whether you're alone for 10 minutes, whether you're alone for 10 weeks, right. The past just lives inside of you. And so then he must confront that to come to terms with what he is and why and where he fits.
And I think that's why that's getting to the root of it. Thank you, doctor. That's why I'm afraid to be alone for that long, is to go that deep in and to think that far in.
Vodka helps.
Vodka? Brilliant. Why didn't I try that? Now that's amazing too. Vodka in Solitude. Wow. Yikes. You really did that. I mean, that's like an experiment.
It was an experiment. It was a masochistic experiment because I used myself as a guinea pig.
Yikes. So this book is due to release
December 6th, that's this coming Friday. We're having a book release party with the Bemidji Brewing Company at their tap room. That'll begin at 4 p.m., go to 7 p.m. We will have paperbacks available on hand. Hardcovers will be available by special release. And if you buy a book, you get a free Bemidji beer.
Excellent. Are you going to be present?
I will be there, yep.
So you'd be willing to sign a book or two?
I could if it was requested, yes.
Excellent.
Can I sign at Mike Braden?
Sign at Mike Braden. Yeah, just have people understand that I've already undergone this test of what it's like to be in 4 months in solitude with vodka present.
Yeah. Well, I mean, only about 50% of the time I had vodka because I would run out early in the week and then have to wait.
Scares me.
It's terrifying, yeah.
So with the process of writing, what you've learned through writing this book, what would you have to say to somebody that's thinking about writing or has written and thinking about doing it again?
Yeah, it depends on the topic you're exploring, and you have to be fully aware of what your constraints are, I guess, because as I said, for me, trying to write while living in the full-time workforce. I was perfectly okay writing little poems in the night or a short story on the weekend, but when it came down to trying to put something in a full-length novel form, I just couldn't stay focused for that long a time with the daily distractions of the 9 to 5, so I had to separate myself from that. So it's just something to consider if you're in a position where you can free yourself from those burdens of thought, or if you're going to write, if you're going to write about what you do for your 9 to 5, you know, if you want to write a how-to book or how to start an upstream TV station.
I still need to write the manual on that. Probably can't remember. Why are you compelled to write then? Is it because that is the way that you do release or come full circle, come to terms with things?
I've never been much for verbal conversation. Sorry. But I don't know, that's just the way it always worked. Like when I was young even, my mom has collections of poetry that I wrote like in 2nd grade, and it was just, thoughts just sort of start to build up, you know, and they get retained in the back of your head and by like some gate or some unseen force. Mm-hmm. And if you don't release them, then they start to come out in short bursts. And the only way you can translate those is in written form, because if you try and explain to somebody these thoughts that have been marinating, fermenting in the lacuna of your mind for who knows how long, it's just going to come out complete nonsense, and they're going to put you in the asylum. So they still may, but...
I like the way you talk. This book here by Daniel J. Rice, this is basically the answer to the question I've been asking over and over. What's your story? Your story is this side of a wilderness. So this Friday, is that what's going on?
Friday, 4 p.m. Yep.
At the Bemidji Brewery.
Bemidji Tap Room, yep.
At Tap Room. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Any closing words to the people out there?
Hope you enjoy winter, because it's on us now.
Thanks, bro.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Real pleasure.
Appreciate it.
I like this guy.